Houston.
The Clippers.
The one team that he would accept the buyout for is Cleveland. At this point, anywhere else seems better, right?
Carmelo should ask a trade. I'm surprised he hasn't did it by now.
I don't think the Knicks are open to that right now. They're not willing to part with Carmelo Anthony without getting assets back.
Carmelo's a terrific player. Why would you want to finish your career on a bad team?
Carmelo Anthony's future in the Big Apple up in the air as we welcome in our Knicks reporter Ian Begley. Ian, you have an article right now on ESPN.com titled How Carmelo Anthony Escapes from New York. Break it down for us. What would need to happen for Melo to go to the Rockets?
Seems like we need to get a third team involved here because the big contract on Houston's side is Ryan Anderson. And as of late last week, the Knicks had no interest in bringing back Ryan Anderson in any potential Carmelo trades because they're looking for younger players or older players on shorter deals. So if the Knicks and Rockets could find a third team, and the one that Bobby Marks and I proposed would be the Miami Heat, if they could find a third team to send Ryan Anderson to, maybe they get a deal done, because then you have Trevor Ariza and Houston's non-guaranteed contracts coming back to New York, Carmelo going to Houston to team up with Chris Paul and James Harden. The math works there, and then the Knicks would be getting in return Trevor Ariza, who's entering the final year of his contract, and then a bunch of non-guaranteed deals. So that would open up some cap space for New York, something that they would value because they are in rebuilding mode right now.
All right, we've also reported Melo is open to waiving his no-trade clause to go to the Cavs. What's the most likely way for Cleveland to get him?
Again, I think you're looking at a three-team deal here because, as Bobby Marks points out, Kevin Love in New York isn't a perfect fit because they have Kristaps Porzingis right now at the 4. So, a perfect scenario for New York would be to create a three-team deal where Kevin Love goes to a third team. They can send Carmelo Anthony out, and then again, they open up that cap space. So maybe Atlanta would be willing to jump in here, take Kevin Love on, send one of their first-round picks to New York. That gives the Knicks a first-round pick, allows them to open up cap space for next summer. But really, none of these trades are ideal for the Knicks because they're not getting any significant assets back for Carmelo Anthony.
Ian, so what would be a third scenario for the Knicks and Melo to part ways?
Seems like the most likely scenario here, Tony, is the Knicks eventually agreeing to a buyout with Anthony using the stretch provision. As of late last week, the Knicks were not interested in entertaining buyout talks with Carmelo and Carmelo's people because they're adamant about wanting to get an asset back here in any Carmelo Anthony trade. But members of the organization feel that it's best to move on from Anthony. Anthony, as of last week, was open to moving on. So it seems like the most likely end game here is agreeing to that buyout. Again, that's tough for the Knicks because they're not getting any assets back in giving up a player that they signed to a $124 million contract a few years ago, but they would be freeing up some cap space in this scenario.
Melo has averaged at least 20 points a game in each of his 14 seasons in the NBA. We're just going to have to wait and see what indeed ends up happening. For more of Ian's story, head over to ESPN.com. In the meantime, let's send it over to you, Linda.
Thank you, Tony. For more, we welcome back our NBA analyst, Ryan Russillo, who's back with us on SportsCenter, and our front office insider, Tom Penn, who comes from us from L.A. Tom, what's the most likely scenario for Melo and the Knicks to part ways?
There's no way they can do a buyout. That makes zero sense to me. This guy is way too good a player. You can't eat that money, even if you stretch it out. There is just no way that works. They cannot buy him out. So you look at trading. I think it's Cleveland as the destination. I think Kevin Love being put into motion should turn into some sort of assets for New York. Even if they had to take Love back himself, you would rather have Love and then the ability to flip Kevin at a later date if you don't want to keep him to another club for assets. They may not solve it all at once, but I do think that you may see Carmelo Anthony in Cleveland with LeBron James, which would be wildly interesting, make the Cavs incredibly different, right, to have him in there as a scoring option with LeBron. And I could see a deal like that happening, whether it's a linear deal 1-for-1, which is easy, or if they get into a three-team deal as all the players reshuffle here in free agency.
And Tom, and the Eastern Conference more watchable. Ryan, do you agree, Cleveland or Houston? Do you agree with Tom and Cleveland would be a better fit?
Well, I think it's a better fit for what Melo would want to do, because you look at Cleveland and bringing in Melo, I mean, they're already the favorites in the East anyway. So when you pay attention to how this deal could go down, I've talked to so many people now about this. Melo and LeBron talk about it, okay? But the preference is for Melo to be bought out, so Cleveland's not giving up any assets, not giving up a Kevin Love. So Melo is added to this group that wants to make another run at the Warriors. From a basketball standpoint, Melo's going to have more open opportunities and be somebody that would be a bigger part of the offense in Houston. But in Houston, he would really, I think, have to change who he is as a player, because there's going to be so many different looks for him where they're not going to want to stop the basketball in D'Antoni's system, a system that he actually, at one point also played in.
Let's talk about the Miami Heat. Yesterday, the Heat agreeing to re-sign Dion Waiters. Good job by Waiters to do this out and in. He got more money, a 4-year, $52 million deal. After the Heat lost out on Gordon Hayward, the Heat also lost out, as you guys know, on KD. And Dwayne Wade, remember that last year, as well as LeBron back in 2014. Tom, back to you. What's going on of late with Pat Riley and the throwing the rings on a table? It's not working anymore to attract free agents to come to South Beach.
Look, it's about the peer group. All these guys want to join who their peers are, and the superstars recruit the superstars. And Pat Riley's got a pretty darn good team down there, but he doesn't have superstar status. So I think that's their main challenge. Look, things went haywire. Chris Bosh had this career-ending injury. That set things in motion. You see LeBron leave, then Dwayne Wade leaves. It's really a cautionary tale to all those that think the Warriors are here forever as constituted. You never know what's going to happen health-wise or otherwise. Pat Riley is still the boss. He's still the godfather of all NBA executives. When he talks, people listen. But that can only go so far. And when you're sitting there across from a 20-something, soon-to-be centimillionaire, wherever he goes, it's not so much come join me. It's come join these other guys on the team. And while they have a great team, they don't have that stud that the other marquee player would want to run with.
You're absolutely right. I mean, this is only about who's already in place. So whenever anybody wants to move LeBron around next year, it's, okay, well, who would he be going with? And when this worked the first time, he was going to join an in-prime Dwayne Wade with another guy in his 20s. So Pat Riley deserves credit for pulling it off, but I think you could even say, like, he was the secondary piece in all of this. So I'm not going to sit here and start going, what's wrong with Pat Riley? What's wrong with most of the franchises then? Because most of the franchises can't get these guys. It's a flawed way of looking at this. It's like asking everybody that loses in the World Series of poker what went wrong. Like, well, I lost, and that one guy won. If you asked all these fan bases, does it feel like you never get a big free agent? 90% of them in the NBA would say, man, it feels like our guy can never close a deal. Heat fans should be happy they ever closed it once. I think the expectation is they could keep doing it, and it's not going to be Whiteside and Dion Waiters and Dragic bringing in those other big names.
Great points. Welcome to the rest of the world, the Miami Heat and Pat Riley. I mean, this is what other teams have to deal with a lot.
Absolutely.
Mediocrity. Heat just 6 total games over 500 during the last 3 seasons. Gentlemen, thank you.
Here's what we got coming up on SportsCenter this hour at 11:20 a.m. Eastern. World Series champ Chris Bryant joins us live on SportsCenter. He's going to talk about it all, including how he's dealing with the ups and downs of this season so far. Then 6 minutes after that, we dive into the NFL, specifically the AFC South. Is this the season that Marcus Mariota surpasses Andrew Luck as a division's top quarterback? And at 11:36, part 2 of our E60 story of Australian surfer Mick Fanning surviving an attack from a great white shark was a tragedy avoided, but as we learned, tragedy was not something he could escape.
That Pop is back in the lineup.
Searching through the mud to find the present, no ignoring us. Got 20,000 deep up in the street like we some warriors. My mama told me never bow your head. I feel glorious, glorious. Got a chance to start again.
So here's the good news in Boston. Gordon Hayward has chosen the Celtics as his next employer. They will have the privilege of paying him $128 million over the next 4 seasons. But that could mean some difficult decisions as they try and free up enough cap room to accommodate his max deal. And 3 guys in particular who are thought to be part of the long-term plan are in the spotlight as potential sources of cap relief. While it isn't the only route possible, Avery Bradley, Jay Crowder, or Marcus Smart could be on the way out to free up the requisite space. From all, let's welcome in ESPN Radio's Ryan Russillo, who's in the studio with us this morning, and front office insider Tom Penn joining us from Los Angeles. And Tom, I want to start with you. There are reports that Celtics may trade Jake Crowder to the Jazz in a sign and trade for Gordon Hayward. Why would the Celtics essentially give Crowder away since they've already agreed with Hayward?
Yeah, how about it? Jay Crowder was the player that a lot of teams said the Celtics did not want to trade in these earlier iterations, whether it was at the last trade deadline or over the summer here. So the reason they do it is just to clear up enough space. They don't have enough space to accommodate Hayward. Now, they don't need to move all $6.8 million of Crowder, but if they do that, they would come up with another $5+ million of room to play with if they just moved him out. Or they may be getting another player back in return. So if they put Jay Crowder in the deal, maybe they get a big back who can protect the rim. Or maybe they get cap flexibility that allows them to go sign a player like JaVale McGee or someone who might come in and protect the rim. I don't know what they're hearing for any of these players, but it's really interesting to see those three names thrown around because they've been critical rotation players for the Celtics coming into this year. And you know, they had a heck of a team, a balanced team, and now you start really messing with chemistry to accommodate Gordon Hayward.
You know, and to that point, Ryan, I want to ask you, you know, obviously they're going to have to part with a rotation player to get there where they need to go. Do you think Crowder shipping him out is the right move?
Well, it probably makes the most sense because of how some of the positions duplicate. Like, I'm not as worried about positions in today's NBA because it's almost like just throw as many guys out there that can find a way to get a bucket. But Crowder was incensed even when they were cheering for Gordon Hayward when he came to visit. And he's like, look, I'm pretty good. And Crowder is a really good player. But he's also somebody who has cost certainty who this is not just giving him away. Like, I imagine some sort of asset would be coming back. And as Tom references, they still need somebody big around the rim. Like, we're trying to already rank these teams in free agency. We're not a week into this thing. So they may look at this as, yeah, we didn't want to lose Crowder, but we still get the Hayward deal done. Now we have some relief somewhere else. But you also have to remember, every decision is not just about this summer or this year. Because if it wasn't Crowder, who's still under contract for 3 years, it could be a Bradley or a Smart, who they then have to worry about their next contract. So you can't just make sure you're keeping every one of these guys and maxing them out to these massive deals. So this deal with Hayward, they knew there was another piece they were going to have to lose, not just because of the cap this year, but because of all the contracts coming up.
Sometimes you're just too reasonable. I want answers after just 1 week of NBA free agency. Come on, Ryan.
Yeah, because some of these teams, I'm like, I don't know I can rank them yet. There's like 7 guys under contract.
And those guys' cap numbers are obsolete, as you said earlier, which is interesting.
Yeah, right.
Using the word reasonable, I'm trying to. We're going to try to for this next story. Okay. We learned last night that the Cavaliers offered Chauncey Billups a well below market offer to be their president of basketball operations. Let's bring back Tom here. Given the Cavs' history under Dan Gilbert, the owner, with this position, if you're a rising candidate, why would you consider going to Cleveland when you are hearing that, you know, the average for this position is around $4 million around the league, and the offer that Chauncey got was less than $2 million per?
I'm not sure why the money really matters here. I mean, it's supposed to matter, but in this case, Chauncey's made a boatload of dough. I would think he'd be more interested in the right fit and the opportunity to succeed. He's never done this job. He's a rookie GM. If you look at other rookie comparable general managers or presidents of basketball, whatever you want to call them, the number's actually way below $2 million. Most come in closer to $1 million. So I think he's getting double the money here as an offer of what a normal person should get. Now, he's not a normal person. He's Mr. Big Shot. He's a big-time brand in and of himself. And he's sitting at ESPN where he's doing a phenomenal job on the air and presumably can continue to do that. So I think for him it's more about the right fit for the long term. If he really wants to do this job, it shouldn't come down to the money. It should come down more to the opportunity. To your point on that graphic, seems to be we cycle through quite a few people at this organization rather than having stability and long-term opportunity to make your imprint for the next 5-10 years. So it's curious to me the way this news broke, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. There's only really 3 weeks where you need somebody at the helm making these decisions, and we just passed 2 of them with the draft and with free agency. So it may be a while before there's somebody in Cleveland.
Brian, you want to weigh in on something like this, considering what this position is and what Griffin did previously in trying to balance this position?
Well, Tom brings up a lot of good points. I mean, we have to remember who we're talking about here with Dan Gilbert. He doesn't value this position. He doesn't value this position. So if Chauncey's going in looking for $4 million, which I understand why he would want that. Like, Tom's right about what entry-level GM salaries are, and some people look at Pelinka and go, well, wait a minute, how come he's making all this money with the Lakers? Well, there's another concept of it that he's been in the league. He's been an agent. He's been part of this thing for a really long time, and Chauncey's come from the outside. But I remember when Mark Jackson wanted a head coaching gig. It's like, well, why don't you become an assistant? Mark Jackson's like, because I'm Mark Jackson. I don't need to wait around. And guess what? He didn't have to. He ended up getting the head coaching gig. Jason Kidd got a head coaching gig right away. Some of these guys that are such big-name players go, why would I have to wait and be an assistant GM or take less money than anybody else? I don't need to do that. Let me start the ticker at an even higher number. The problem is Chauncey maybe trying to do it with one of the cheapest owners when it comes to this position, which is so ironic because the last thing you could ever call Gilbert is cheap. Gilbert has been the furthest thing from cheap as an owner his entire time in Cleveland. He just doesn't think the GM should make that much money. He hasn't re-signed any of them.
It's fascinating, too, because the GM's going to be pivotal in the next year with the idea of LeBron potentially leaving.
But I do think the biggest thing that we learned from that story, and I talked to some sources yesterday about this, the idea that once Billups turned it down, we all just go, LeBron's out of here. He had talked to Chauncey. Chauncey's like, all right, and that's just not true. That conversation did not happen, according to multiple people that I talked to, and then Chauncey even backed that up in his piece with was it The Undefeated, where that came out last night. So there you go.
Well, I think it's also interesting how much of that determined also Chauncey's decision, thinking that potentially LeBron may not stay.
Right. Yeah, I don't think that happened, though.
Right.
People thought LeBron was leaving before the whole Chauncey thing. So
yeah, I mean, that's the other thing if you're Chauncey. You're like, wait a minute, you just gave Ty Lue like $7 million and he hadn't been a coach before? And it's just, I mean, we don't have to actually dig that deep. Gilbert's not going to pay the GM a lot, and I could totally understand why Chauncey would want to get paid because he's Chauncey Billups.
Ryan, thank you so much. Reason, that's what he brings here to the set. Tom, thank you so much as well. Bringing the numbers as well as Reason as well. Now, let's just throw Reason out the door and let's claim the Sixers are going to win the NBA Finals, right? Because
have fun with that.
All
right, go ahead.
All right.
This is your part of the show.
This is my part because I've trusted the process for quite some time. Kevin Durant liking what he sees from Markelle Fultz there, especially his first game. The Hesse pull-up Jimbo, what's that?
Hesse pull-up Jimbo? It's just saying like a nice heads-up pull-up. I mean, it's back DC, like DMV talk, but a lot of basketball players, just talk like that, so it's pretty fun.
#1 pick overall in the draft last month, looking very good. The floater in the lane early on, taking on the Jazz Summer League, and this is a beautiful play. A little spin move, a little stop, pop, and drop. It looked good. That jumper was silky smooth. Big fourth quarter for Fultz. Loses control, but never really loses control. Inside, can play both guard positions, combo guard at 6'4", 195 pounds. In this fourth quarter, he had 13 points. That step-back threes is money right there. Sixers would lose. He finished the game with 23 points. I'm sure KD and many pleased.
The Celtics, they know it's early, but man, would they love to believe that this guy is going to be for real. And so far, he looks like it. And he's also making his mom very proud.
You want him to do so well, but you give him that pregame speech too, like, just be calm down and do your best and it'll all work out. But I was so proud of him. 21 points in his debut. I did get on him though. I was like, I need 3 more rebounds, a double-double.
Pass from Jason Tatum looking for that double-double for his mom against the Spurs here off the missed 3. He comes flying in. Look at that putback jam. We're going to show it to you one more time. Tatum ended up with 10 rebounds in the game, just like his mother ordered. How about that? And then later, Tatum off the ball there on the wing, cuts backdoor, finishes with the huge 2-hand slam. Another look there. Pretty impressive. Tatum having himself a game. And here off the Spurs turnover, he gets it ahead. Yep, another one. 23 points, 10 rebounds for Jason Tatum, who is making those folks up in Boston smile really, really big, Jay Harris.
Yeah, Lindsay Zarniak. Last night, the official SportsCenter Twitter handle sent out this image with a quote from Celtics draftee Jason Tatum about Kobe Bryant. That's my favorite player. He was. Then I went to the Celtics. And Tatum responded to that with the crying, laughing emoji and a little shrug of the shoulders because he's like, I'm in Boston, I'm wearing green, Kobe is a Laker, and y'all know there's this rivalry thing going on, so yeah, he's not my favorite player anymore, sorry. Love Kobe, but don't anymore. Sorry.
And it's time now to check in on our morning lineups. D'Angelo Williams, he is wrestling with his future, figuratively and literally. What's next for the running back? We're going to talk about that at 9:32 Eastern. Plus, Magic Johnson and the Lakers, they are already getting ready for the 2018 offseason. Ryan Russillo returning with his take on the plan out in L.A. That's at 9:46. Stay with us.
Ahead on SportsCenter today, Ian Begley recently wrote an article titled How Carmelo Anthony Escapes from New York. Our Knicks insider brings his insight at 11 Eastern. Plus, Chris Bryant is awaiting a 4 p.m. announcement to see if fans have voted him into next week's All-Star game. He joins the show live at 11:20 Eastern to discuss. Meanwhile, the Celtics are still trying to finalize a deal for Gordon Hayward. Catch Ramona Shelburne live at 12:30 Eastern with the very latest. And as always, you can catch it all on the ESPN app.
They have to go into the corner to Waiters. Fade away. Hit it at the horn. Holy cow. Waiters with the hoop.
Waiters against Lee Thompson. 3 for the win. Got it! Oh, Waiters from downtown!
They're the moments you want to live for, especially against a great team like that. I'm in the zone right now. I'm not afraid of them type of moments. I truly believe in them type of moments. And man, it feels good, man. It feels good.
Quite a resurgence for Dion Waiters in Miami last season, and especially in his final 25 games of the season. The Heat went 21-4 in those games, and Waiters shot 45% from beyond the arc. So he bet on that performance by declining his $3.2 million option for this coming season. Pretty good move. He and the Heat have agreed to a 4-year deal worth $52 million.
Another good move here, Jay. NBA free agency yesterday. Swaggy P moving north from L.A. to Oakland, taking his scoring talents to the Warriors. It's a 1-year deal, just over $5 million for that 1 year for a player who averaged 13 points for the Lakers last season. Now, new teammate Kevin Durant made sure to welcome Nick Young to the squad with this iconic miss 3 years ago, where Swaggy was the last to know the shot found more iron than nylon. He tweeted that picture out, retweeted over 80,000 times. It's the miss that keeps on giving, by the way. And that tweet continues. It's exceeded now 85,000 retweets in the last 18, 19 hours. Lindsay?
Yeah, Kevin, he's not exactly the model of consistency, although in some ways I guess Nick Young is. I'm back with Ryan Russillo now. So Nick Young will not be back with the Lakers. What do you make of these moves, them clearing space for the future?
It's the only move, really, at this point. If you're the Lakers and they can say they're not rebuilding, it's such a dirty word when you talk to the marketing side of a team and the sponsorship.
Rebuilding, yeah.
It's almost like we have a really hard time with the truth, and they're rebuilding.
Right.
It's okay to say that we're rebuilding. They don't want to say it. But this is about Magic being in a position with Rob Pelinka, who's terrific as well, and being able to say to guys, when all of these dudes are free agent next summer, and we're sitting out here talking about it again, that we have space and we want to build something. Because as impressive as Magic is as a person and his resume, it's not going to matter in L.A. until there's already another star in place. These players don't go anywhere unless there's somebody already there. So keeping Nick Young for another $5 million or any of these smaller pieces, it doesn't really mean anything. Everything should be 1-year deals, and everything with the Lakers should be built around Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram.
And what do you think of Young with the Warriors?
Well, there's this great thing with the Warriors. Your life just becomes that much easier. And really, I can't think of any circumstance if I were a GM if I'd be like, I got to get JaVale McGee. But if I were the Warriors, I'd want JaVale McGee. And JaVale McGee was terrific
why not,
for them. Right? Everything's easy. We're not going to ask you to do anything. So all Nick Young has to do now is take all these wide open shots because all the other guys are going to be the defensive priority. So Nick Young's going to be loving life up there. And I mean, he's a great shooter. But when you take the ball out of Nick Young's hands now where he doesn't have to make decisions, then that's the best Nick Young that you can get. It's a little different when he's running the offense and making all these decisions. He doesn't have to do any of this stuff. He's never going to have an easier time in his NBA career than what he's going to have with Golden State this year.
So basically, they let Nick Young be Nick Young. All right, Ryan Russillo, thank you.
The shooting Nick Young.
Exactly. Right, that one. All right, still ahead here, the best from around the sport.
Yeah, and what the heck's going on here? The Cavs made a below-market salary offer of $2 million annually to Chauncey Billups to serve as their president of basketball operations. Our Chris Haynes and Mark Spears are reporting this. $4 million, typically the starting point of what an individual in that role should earn, according to league sources. We need more. We welcome in our NBA analyst, Ryan Russillo, who is with us right now, an NBA front office insider who comes to us from L.A., Tom Penn. Tom, I'm going to start with you. You were in an NBA front office for 11 years. All exciting, I'm sure. What's your take on what's going on with Dan Gilbert and the Cavaliers organization right now?
So curious to not have a main decision maker in basketball operations in this particular window of time. The draft and free agency, it's when everything is happening. And what they've done is they've added Jose Calderon to a minimum deal. Not exactly going to move the needle. So I find it just so odd that at this particular time of the year, that organization has chosen to go leaderless, so to speak. The top two in basketball ops move out. And Dan Gilbert is obviously making these decisions himself and is very involved and engaged, knows basketball. He can pull the trigger on deals. But at this time of year, Linda, it's not just simple linear deals. You try to hoist yourself into everything that goes on and see if you can make yourself better while all these other trades are happening. Get into a simultaneous trade. So I find it odd that they haven't had a way to attack this and get the right kind of leader in there. It's been Chauncey or nothing. They offered Chauncey apparently $2 million, which he has deemed to be below market. Others would argue that's just fine. You know, I'm not going to get into that point.
Right.
But they need somebody in the middle of all these deals to try to make their team better. That's the job of the basketball operations leader, and they don't have one.
I think the biggest thing here is that if you're looking at Chauncey Billups, he does not think, as Tom points out, that entry-level money. Like, he's going, I'm Chauncey Billups. Like,
right.
I'm not. Like, I know what other entry-level guys make, but, you know,
my stock is high right now.
Right, so I'm not going to settle here. And if we know one thing about Dan Gilbert that's consistent is that he'll pay any amount of salary. He is the furthest thing from cheap. Highest payroll again this year. Did it the last time LeBron was there. Paid Ty Lue a ton of money, but he does not value this position. So for whatever reason, the way he plans out his business model, when it comes to a team, he does not value financially this position. Yeah. And so if Chauncey was looking for that big payday, which other teams may have done, even though he hasn't done the job before, because they just go on the basketball resume, that wasn't going to happen here for Billups with Dan Gilbert.
He's been consistent, at least in that area. Our Ramona Shelburne and Adrian Wojnarowski reporting that the Celtics are working to clear cap space for Gordon Hayward's max contract, discussing trades involving, you guys know the names, Marcus Smart, Jay Crowder, Avery Bradley. Tom, to you, what's the most likely scenario for the Celtics to get this done?
Well, it's been expensive so far. You know, every time we would create all that cap room on the cap machine, we never really showed what it took to get who they had to lose to create enough space, and they're not quite there yet. It's been hard so far. Tyler Zeller was waived, and then look at it. Olenek, Jerebko, Young, and Green all renounced, meaning that they take their number off the books and lose whatever preferred rights they have. That frees up the cap space, but they're not done yet. They still need to shave a couple $1 million or $1 million. How depends how you look at it. And they're going to have to move one or two players. So the conversation is around some of these key rotation players at bigger numbers. And, you know, Ryan, I don't know who you think they're most likely to move. It's hard to just speculate because you have to know what they're going to get back for that player. They're not going to just move them to get rid of them if you're talking about Crowder or Avery Bradley. But I don't know. What's your thought? Who should they move?
Well, I think that last point's a really good one because when we start looking at the cap crunch here, I've just heard people in the last 18 hours or so ask the questions of, well, you just have to dump these guys. They're all assets. You would want Marcus Smart. You would want Avery Bradley. And you would absolutely want Jay Crowder because he has an outdated contract. He's $7 million per, turns 27 today. He's under contract for about 3 more years, just over that $7 million mark. So there will be teams, especially teams with cap space, that miss out on free agency that would want these. So I think the battle, if you're the Celtics here now, is positional depth and saying maybe Crowder Hayward doesn't necessarily fit, but we know the cost certainty of what Crowder is, as opposed to Bradley, who I'm sure they'd rather keep as the basketball player, but knowing that his new contract is going to be far beyond what Crowder's getting paid right now.
Definitely an area worth watching with both of you, Ryan and Tom. You guys will be back next hour, of course, and talk about a possible landing spot for Carmelo Anthony. Look forward to that. Our next WNBA game of the week is a rematch of last year.
On a per-year basis, $100 million over 8 years.
And Jay, speaking of contracts, Dion Waiters agreeing to a 4-year deal with the Heat that's worth $52 million, and it looks like A pretty good decision to opt out of the second year of his deal, which would have paid him $3.2 million this upcoming season. How about that, right?
Yeah, that's a smart decision.
You know, and you don't know when you're doing it, but man, when it pays off, I'm sure it's a welcome sign of relief. Hey, staying with the NBA, we're now going to welcome front office insider Bobby Marks. Bobby, it's great to have you with us. We learned more last night about the Cavaliers' offer to Chauncey Billups to become their president of basketball operations. We learned that it was under $2 million. The offer was well below the average salary. What does that tell you about how Dan Gilbert values this position when he's making a perceived lowball offer to his first choice?
Well, I think what it tells you is that Dan Gilbert has no regard for the general manager's position in the NBA. And I think just talking with league executives yesterday, that the theory is that Dan Gilbert thinks that you can roll out the ball and let LeBron James take over here. And I think he's going to learn the hard way next summer. I really do. And where this Cavaliers team goes next summer, if LeBron James does go into free agency, it's going to be a lesson learned here.
Find that wild when you say learn the hard way, considering he's gone through this already. You know?
I know. And does he think that LeBron is going to stay? Like, what are you hearing that he actually thinks?
Well, I think he's treating it as LeBron James is on the last year of his contract, and the likelihood is that he'll opt out and he'll be a free agent once again, and he'll go through his options right now. And I have high regard for Kobe Altman, their assistant GM, who's taking over right now. But just talking with teams, they regard that job as the hardest in the NBA, and that is not an easy job to take over. And whoever takes over, the question is, do you want to be the person who drives LeBron James out of Cleveland?
Yeah, that's not a good way to start a legacy
Good
here.
luck.
Yeah, because you're caught in a tough place. You have an owner who has a high demand, and then you have a superstar, the greatest basketball player right now on the planet, who also has a high demand. You have to find that middle ground, and we saw that previously with Griffin, who did a great job. Let's go to the Celtics here now. Woj and Ramona Shelburne reporting last night that they're in discussions with the Jazz to do a sign-and-trade deal for Gordon Hayward that would send Jay Crowder to Utah. They play the same position. What are the benefits for the Celtics to trade Crowder?
Well, I don't see any benefits right now at all. I don't. I know there's an overload at the small forward position when you drafted Jason Tatum, you have Jaylen Brown, Crowder, and now you had Gordon Hayward. I think it's best to hold on to him and maybe use him and maybe Avery Bradley as an asset in the future here. I think you could still get away with moving a Terry Rozier or Demetrius Jackson, Jordan Mickey. I know you'll be about $300,000 short of the max number, but if I'm the Celtics, I'm going back to Mark Bartelstein, the agent for Gordon Hayward, and saying, hey, this is what we have. We've got 29.3 instead of 29.7 million. We want to use Jay Crowder down the road to maybe get us a center here.
That's fascinating.
It is, right?
Yeah.
You got to position your peeps.
Yes.
As for the Lakers, they've been really quiet this offseason. As you look at the current contracts on their roster, how do you see them being set up for future moves?
Well, I think they're going to be conservative right now. I think you've seen the last 4 days of free agency, one of the few teams that hasn't gone out and made a move. Right now, about $17.2 million in cap space, 12 players under contract. I think you'll see players maybe like a Rajon Rondo sign there for a one-year deal at a high number, at $10 million number. And that will preserve the Lakers' flexibility next summer. I also think you probably won't see any rookie extension talks when it comes to Julius Randle, just to preserve that room. And what it sets up for the Lakers next summer is we could see a team with $60 to $65 million in cap space. And as you guys know, in a league that a lot of teams have spent the last couple days, including last summer, the Lakers are going to be in the pole position when it comes to free agency in 2018.
Bobby Marks, he's going to be back at 8:45 for more basketball discussions. Bobby, we appreciate you. Thank you.
Hey, we got a standing no here the day before we get the not top 10. Brought to you by Shane Whittington.
Arsenal.
For this play in the Spurs-Celtics game, makes a nice steal, looks to have an easy bucket. Oh, no. Losing the ball mid-flight. And then he crashes into the cameraman. Yeah, that adds that extra insult right there. Help the man up, man. Yes, please, yes. Guy with the camera. Spurs will go on the win. Shane Whittington is making SportsCenter for all the wrong reasons, and I imagine we will see him again tomorrow.
Kevin, you like pickles?
Yeah.
This is top in a pickle. right?
I've seen some pickles.
From baseball to the NBA, top son Jason Tatum, an impressive 21 points, 7 boards in the Summer League debut. His mom's proud.
You want him to do so well, but you give him that pregame speech too, like, you know, just be calm down and do your best, and it'll all work out. But I was so proud of him. I mean, 21 points in his debut. I did get on him, though. I was like, I need 3 more rebounds, a double-double.
He listened. He was looking for that double-double for mom against the Spurs. Off the missed 3, yep, flying in. Look at that. Down the lane, the putback jam. He had 10 rebounds in the game, just like his mother ordered. Later, cutting back door, finishing with the 2-handed slam. Another look at that one later on. The Spurs turning it over. Tatum. There you go, 2-handed slam. And then later, Tatum getting down on the break. Taking it down, throwing down. Another one-handed slam. 23 points, 10 rebounds. That was his final. The Spurs won, though, 81-70. But you can imagine that he made his mother pretty proud.
Oh, yeah. You know who else is proud? Danny Ainge looking very good. Ainge trading that #1 pick overall to get Tatum at 3rd overall. That #1 pick went to the Sixers and Markelle Fultz. This was on Monday, his debut in the Summer League. That pull-up 3, and then prompted Kevin Durant to tweet out the Hesse pull-up Jimbo was smooth. You know, Fultz from DeMatha High, powerhouse in D.C., same area that Durant's from. Some context here, Markelle.
Yeah, nah, it's just saying like a nice heads-up pull-up. I mean, it's back D.C. like DMV talk, but a lot of basketball players, just talk like that, so it's pretty fun.
Folks breaking out a couple new moves that we saw on Wednesday. The Washington product. Floater in the lane right there. Streaking down the court. And then I like this one. A little stop, pop, and drop right there. Silky smooth. He's still, again, this is his first week of playing professional hoops. And, yeah, trust the process. The air ball right there. In the fourth quarter, though, the 6'4" combo guard was feeling himself from the outside. The triple, then from the wing, another triple. Inbound pass nearly stolen by Dante Exum, and then Fultz recovers, drives, always in control going in. 23 points, 13 in the fourth quarter, had 5 assists, 5 rebounds, 6 turnovers. Trust the process. Jazz would go on the win by 6 points, but Markelle Fultz showing that he can do it all offensively. Ryan Russillo joining us now. What have you seen from these two guys, Fultz and Tatum? It's 1 week, but what have you seen so far?
You just look for, I think, movements, just certain movements that go, okay, that looks like an NBA player. And those hesitation dribbles from Fultz, like, there's really not much you can do with that. I don't care who you are defensively. And some of these step backs from Tatum and these Tatum's ability to get into a dribble and then just pull up even in transition that we saw glimpses of at Duke when he started handling the ball. Like, that's a shot that just not a lot of guys are even going to hit in the league. So that's the stuff that you see. For the most part, these summer games are terrible. I watched a Pistons Magic one the other day that I thought was a D-League summer league game, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, this is the NBA. So I don't want to get too carried away with the summer league stuff, because really summer league, I only use the outcomes that back my opinion of a player. So if I think a guy's great and he has a great summer league, I'm like, I told you guys. And if I think a guy's terrible, there are so many players that put up huge numbers in summer league that end up doing nothing. But I think when you're talking about guys that only spent 1 year at college and show you real NBA offensive moves, that's a win for everybody that thinks these players are good, and everybody thinks these guys are great.
That's true. That's true. Let's talk some business now. Ramona Shelburne and Adrian Wojnarowski reporting the Jazz in discussion with the Celtics to do a sign and trade deal for Gordon Hayward that would send Jay Crowder to Utah. What are the benefits to the Celtics for the trade Crowder away in the situation, opposing to just releasing?
Well, you don't want to release him because he's actually an asset here. When you think about the fact, and by the way, today's his birthday, so happy birthday to Jay Crowder. He's owed, at 27 years old, 3 more years that average just over $7 million a year. He can shoot from 3. He's a starter in this league, and he's a pretty good defensive player. So there's a lot to like about Jay Crowder. So you would never actually just straight out release him. He's someone you're going to get an asset back for, especially with that contract in today's world. But the problem is that when the cap was calculated here, every team thought there was going to be maybe 3, perhaps even more than that, million to work with. And that's not the case. So it's really, really close for this logjam of all these Celtics players that they've had through the draft the last few years to try to fit this all in to give Gordon the max. Now, for Utah, that's a benefit because at least they're going to get something back here. It doesn't have to match the salary of what Gordon would be doing here. So you'll at least get a little piece back. And Jay Crowder's a starting small forward in the NBA. There's so many forwards on the Celtics team, too, that you think logjam-wise,
trying to get Tatum out there, who I believe is better than Jaylen Brown, but still liking Jaylen Brown off his rookie year. That's just a lot of minutes for that forward position.
So then what would you do if you don't think that sending Crowder away is the right move?
Well, you could still move a Marcus Smart if you wanted to. He's 1 year left on his rookie contract. Avery Bradley, I mean, these are players other teams would want. Now, I'm sure they're feeling like I'm going to offer nothing because Ainge is desperate here. Right. But, you know, you're going to be in competition. These are outdated salaries. These are not salaries in today's NBA world. So this isn't really that big of a deal. It's a good news thing for Utah. It could work out even better for Gordon Hayward. And the Celtics should be able to get another piece back for one of these players.
Don't you think you hold on to a guy like Avery Bradley and Jay Crowder for assets down the road, maybe bigger assets right around the trade deadline in February, and maybe you cut some of the rookies or the guys that are making, $2 million? Well,
I don't know where you guys are. I mean, why would anybody be getting cut? Like, you wouldn't be cutting any of these guys. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, okay. Then you try to move one of these guys. The guys that like the Roziers, you can get something, maybe a second round.
Yeah, but those guys make so little money. Like, I was doing the math this morning on it. Like, you would have to just start waiving all of these guys, and you're still like a shade away from what Hayward would be at the max. I get your point, like waiting further on, but they got to figure this thing out to get the contract done. Like, the league's not going to go, hey, you're good for it.
Right.
Unless Hayward would take a little bit less. Yeah, he could do that too, but not everybody's on that Kevin Durant plan, apparently.
That is true.
So if Marcus Smart's the guy they want to move out, I think they love Marcus Smart, but they'd have to re-sign Marcus, they'd have to re-sign Bradley, and Jay Crowder was mad at the world when they were even cheering Gordon Hayward in Boston, so that might be the one that makes the most sense, and actually might be the most attractive because he's cost certainty for the next 3 years, where you're going to do a new Bradley deal, and you're going to have to figure out how to get Marcus going after his rookie deal.
So then you do think that the Crowder might be the decision that they go with?
Yeah, I think they look at it and going, okay, even when we go small, can we go Hayward? Can we go Crowder? And then where are the minutes for somebody like Tatum, who I think needs to be out there immediately? And they really like what they got from Jaylen Brown his rookie year.
All right. Thank you. Ryan's going to be with us at 9:05 a.m. to talk some more NBA. Thank you, Ryan. 8:20 coming up as we check in on our morning lineup. Will Reeve is going to be here with the inspiring story of Army veteran Sergeant Ryan Major, who's competing in the shot put at the Warrior Games. It's why we love sports. And another home run for Aaron Judge yesterday at 8:29 Eastern. We're going to take you inside the Judge's chambers at Yankee Stadium.